Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. It's the TheP-LotPodcast. Michael here, along with myself, John. Michael, how we doing, man?
We're doing pretty good, I think. What a week, honestly, in sports. Pretty much anything that's happening in the football world, I would say, is very positive as an Eagles fan. The strict NFL world. Um, the trade deadline, baseball's trade deadline was maybe the best trade deadline in sports in the last handful of years. I can't really think of one that was this kind of insane. There were some massive names moved. There were some returning guys, prospects all over the place. We haven't, top prospects in all of baseball getting moved for guys. It was pretty wild for really that entire like 2 day stretch leading up to and eventually at the deadline. A bunch of buzzer beater moves got done too, getting reported like 15 minutes after 6 o'clock. Really was something. Culminating in a ridiculous Phillies come from behind victory last night against the Tigers with the fantastic closer entrance of their newest acquisition. We'll get into all that sort of stuff. Um, but yeah, what a week, man. What a week.
Yeah, we'll talk about so there's a lot of news that happened this week in sports.
Mhm.
Obviously just hinted as well. We had a breaking news story last night come by the news desk of the P-Lot podcast.
Mhm.
So, Michael, I gotta be honest, when it comes to NFL holdouts, everyone freaks out when they happen. Like this offseason, Miles Garrett demanded a trade, and
Mhm.
everyone were like, "Oh my God, is he gonna get traded?" And I was like, at first, I was like, kind of like, "Oh, it'd be so cool if the Eagles could get him," but man, like, this is always like a
It's always a
negotiation.
pipe dream. There's you're right. There's very few times that a holdout is like, I want a holdout into a trade request is like, "Actually get me the hell out of here. I do not wanna be here at all." And honestly, the only really you don't see it much, but the only times you really do see the guys end up getting traded, it's like the teams tend to be kinda smart, where it's like if the player is really desired by the franchise, they're probably taken care of ahead of time, and if they're not, they're traded. See Hassan Reddick and the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles loved Reddick, but knew the worth maybe wasn't what he was asking for. Holdout kind of started, trade request happened, gladly traded him off, and it's really been problem off our hands. And it's worked out very well for the Eagles in that regard. Any sort of other player that you can think of that this could have happened to with the Eagles, Devonta Smith was in the same draft as Micah Parsons, and T. Higgins just had problems as like a wide receiver too. Um, Ayuk and Debo were having problems a handful of years ago as another door. The Eagles could have been in a problem where, had they if they were poorly ran, Devonta Smith could have been holding out, having some issues contractually, but the Eagles obviously know what players they love and what players they want to keep long term, so they go out and they take care of them early. So, yeah, a lot of the time these trade requests are not always like trade me. It's like, okay, no more time to mess around with negotiations here. We're getting down to it and we're going to get paid. And I'm making it public now. I'm making it a public problem. And that's exactly what Micah Parsons did.
Right. Yeah. So obviously, Michael Parsons. I mean, we talk about like the elite edge rushers in the National Football League, and like we know Trey Hendrickson led the NFL in sacks this
Sure.
past season. He does not have the same impact on a game like Micah
No,
Parsons.
like he led the league in sacks and the Bengals pass rush win rate was still like in the gutters. He's not great against the run the way that like Micah Parsons is and the way that Miles Garrett or TJ Watt are great against the run. Listen, Micah Parsons every year in the league is at least 12 sacks, and that includes last year in which he only played 13 games. So, I mean, I heard it the other day, and it's pretty true. He is on like a Reggie White career trajectory at the moment in terms of just dominance fresh out of the gate and sacks aplenty fresh out of the gate. He's one of the best non-quarterbacks in the entire league. He's up there absolutely easily a top like probably a
Right.
top
I mean,
two edge rusher, you
say the
know?
only other better edge rusher in the NFL right now than him is probably Miles Garrett.
Agreed. Yes.
Right. And then that I can't. Then I think it's like those. Then it's him, and then I think it drops off a bit. Then you get your T.J.
TJ
Watts,
Watts, you know, and
Trey
then even
Hendrickson.
sure, it's just like Micah Parsons is a freak, and
Mm,
you know, if you draft a guy and you're lucky enough to draft a guy as good as Micah Parsons, I think it's in your best interest to kind of do whatever you can to keep him, and you drove him to this point, which is just
yeah, and we just mentioned T.J. Watt.
average
So
cowboy
T.J. Watt
behavior.
just became the highest non-paid quarterback in the NFL, and now Micah Parsons, his asking price has gone up, which
Yeah,
means
and
he
it's
wants to be paid the same as T.J. Watt, and
yeah,
he has a leg to stand on where it's I'm
it's
better I'm better than TJ Watt.
for sure, and this is so classic Cowboys, and you know, Micah Parsons let out like a 2.5 page notes app, uh, a little diary entry about how he's requesting a trade officially, and you know, it started with not this past offseason, but the one before, you know, entering um, the year Devonta Smith got paid after his third year, which obviously him and Micah Parsons in the same draft. Micah Parsons also wanted to get paid in that same offseason. So he and his agent went to the Cowboys and they said, listen, it's time to pay me. Like, I want to get paid. And even his agent, against his agent's best wishes, of like, listen, man, maybe, you know, wait a little bit so your price tag can go up. And he's like, no, I want to be here. I want to be a Cowboy. I want to get paid. Cowboys said, no, we don't want to pay you. We don't want to extend you this early. We got a couple years left. Like, all right, no problems, whatever. He plays great. Entering um, this offseason now, he wants to go back to the Cowboys, and his agent really is like, listen, man, there's a lot of pass rushers that are about to get paid. Let's just wait. You'll get more than them, or at least the same. You're costing yourself money by going out first. And he goes, I don't care. I want to do it. And the Cowboys just radio silence. They're not answering him. They're not answering his agent. They're not really engaging in any sort of contract negotiations. And it gets to the point where Jerry Jones brings in Micah Parsons for like a meeting, and then all of a sudden it turns into like light contract negotiations because it's a history of what the Cowboys have tried to do. They did it with Tony Romo. Tony Romo was brought into a small little room with Bill Parcells and Jerry Jones, and they were sitting like knees apart, like it's a mob movie scene. And they're like, "Listen, we're not playing you unless you sign the contract." And Tony was like, "Oh, you know, I need more money, whatever." Point is that like the Cowboys run their business like it's the 1960s like New York of mobsters and whatever. Like it's
Well,
ridiculous. They use
so well,
intimidation and America's team as a selling point instead of just upfront normally negotiating contracts.
yeah. So this Jerry Jones has a long history of. Uh,
Undermining agents.
well, I was going to say he has a long history of being hesitant to just have clean negotiations for contracts. Back in the early 90s, I believe the year they won their second Super Bowl when they went back to back, they played the Bills twice. Emmitt Smith held out and it bled into the season. Think about that, Michael. Guys holding out mid-season in the NFL. Like that
It's
rarely
awful.
happens. Well,
It does not
Emmitt
happen much.
Smith held out and they went 0-2. And then Emmitt Smith got paid. They paid him handsomely. And then all was well between Emmitt Smith and the Dallas Cowboys.
I
But
mean, even look at these. Like Dak holds out a little bit, and then he's the highest paid player in football by like a pretty wide margin at this point. CeeDee Lamb holds out, and the morning of week one, it's announced his massive contract gets put out.
I've seen tweets from reporters and I've read stuff about Jerry Jones and negotiations. And, if you want to ask why the Cowboys haven't been to the NFC Championship game in 30 years, it's because Jerry Jones values winning these contract negotiations as much as winning football games.
Yep.
And to me, it's like you said, it's like feels like it's the 1960s. And You look at the Bengals, their owner's like 90 some years old. Jerry Jones ain't that far off from being 90 some years old, too. And it's these grumpy old men who toss nickels like around like their manhole covers. That's a quote from Mike Ditka when he talked about George Halas and why he got traded from the Bears to the Cowboys. He said, why'd you demand a trade? He's like, because Halas tosses nickels like they're manhole covers. He's just cheap.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like that poverty. Now, like maybe 30, 40 years ago, owners could kind of claim that whole like, well, I can't afford to pay him this money. You can't say that anymore when everyone in the NFL shares revenue. They're all making tons of money. Like you can't.
Also, go ahead, go ahead.
And like Michael, listen, I'm not a fan of Michael Parsons. I don't personally like him, but
Yeah.
like the market dictates that he should now be the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. And I don't this is the closest I think we're going to see to a guy holding out potentially being actually traded because the owner just is sick of him and doesn't want to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, making this public is not a good look on the Cowboys. Not that it was a good look on the Cowboys even to begin with, but like the fact that Micah, seems pretty truthful in his notes, little like sonnet. Like it really feels like what he put out there was honest. And I think that, if we're fans of just the league or whatever, and let's say we weren't like fully tuned into the Cowboys the way we are as just people in the NFC East, like you could see that and be like totally shocked. And when you hear, reports and rumors come out that, he does this whole he's been trying to sell America's team even to this day, and like that just doesn't work anymore. Players don't care that the Cowboys are America's team. We wonder why the Cowboys haven't signed a free agent to any significant contract in the last how many ever years at this point. This is why. This is exactly why. The Cowboys are so lucky that the majority of athletes, honestly, especially NFL athletes, tend to really hold a lot of value and like sentiment towards teams that draft them and like give them the chance, to prove themselves and give them the chance to be at the professional level and make a lot of money playing professionally, whatever. That if players didn't have that sort of loyalty just kind of by default the way that they do, they would have nobody on their team. They would be awful for a long time because they're a very good drafting team, and that's what keeps them from being bottom feeders at all times, is that they draft pretty well. Excuse me, that they draft pretty well. But if I was Lamb, or not if I was, but like there would have been a pretty good argument for CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott to not sign an extension with the Cowboys. Like there would have been a pretty good argument for them to be like, you know what? They've dragged me along too far. I felt pretty disrespected by them at this point. I don't want to be here anymore. And like I'm standing by that. But because a lot of NFL players are loyal, I guess to a fault in these scenarios, they end up retaining the players anyways because the Cowboys, they do what they kind of always do, which is this. And then eventually, like, would either of us be surprised if in 2 days we get the notification that Micah Parsons is now the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL? Like, no, not even a little bit. It wouldn't
No,
surprise me even 1%. Because do I think he actually wants to be a Cowboy? Yes, I actually do think he wants to be a Cowboy. Do I think that he really, really wants to be traded? Not particularly. Um, and I do think this is like okay,
I don't
enough's
know.
enough.
So
It's time to come to the table with
I
my
don't know.
agent, you
I'm not
know?
so sure. I'm not so sure about that. Like, would he like to still be a Dallas Cowboy? Like, of course he does. But a
Yeah.
couple things, couple points. You mentioned CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott. They
Sure.
both signed extensions last offseason. Both of them are coming off of probably two of the worst seasons of their careers. Like I have
I
CeeDee
mean,
Lamb's.
Lamb was
Well, so I
there
have CeeDee
for like
Lamb's Pro Football Reference pulled up, and
yeah.
they use a formula called approximate value, And
Yeah,
CeeDee
it's like
Lamb
their war.
had the lowest approximate value of his career since his rookie season last year. Like he only averaged 11.8 yards per catch. And look, I get it. Like they had a backup QB, but at the same time, like like from like he went from having 135 catches, 1,749 yards, 12 touchdowns, and then 101
How many
catches.
games did he play
He played 15
last year?
games, Michael.
He really played that much of a full season. And I get it. No Dak. Dak was hurt for a while last year, but it's just, I mean, I don't know, man. When you hold out and don't pay a guy until the day of the regular season, like it's a really terrible look.
Well,
Like,
so I'm sorry. I have a point in my point
yeah,
reason why I
go ahead.
brought that up was that I think it's possible that not just Jerry, but like the Jones family themselves. I think when you look at CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott, they were both considered high character guys when they were drafted. Michael Parsons, Michael, was in
Was
college. The reason why he wasn't like a top 3 or top 5 pick in 2021, one of the most loaded drafts in the history of the National Football League, was because he was accused of, to call it hazing, I think is putting it mildly.
Yeah.
It's a very mild way
He
of
he
putting it.
he he sodomized his teammates.
Correct. He sodomized. Yeah, he was accused of by a former Penn State player of sodomizing one of his teammates and saying, and I quote, I'm gonna Sandusky you. This right. Yeah. That's what he was accused of. And anytime if people on Twitter
Oh
ask
boy.
him, hey, what happened at Penn State, he immediately blocks them.
Right.
Right. So, like, in other words, so what I'm thinking is, and the Cowboys have a history of drafting guys with, checkered histories. Look at like Des Bryant, for example. Because God bless you. Um, I think Jerry feels like, oh well, I rescued you from you falling in the draft, so you should, take less money because you want to be here, and you know what I mean, like that whole like savior complex that Jerry Jones seems to have too.
Definitely has.
That
Yeah.
like CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott never had. I mean, Dak Prescott I think had a DUI, but like
They love Jerry loves putting out that, like, "Oh, he is under contract, like, it's time to show up," like, that sort of stuff, and it's like, I don't know, it's acting dense and as if you don't know how these things work or whatever, and listen, in a few days, I wouldn't be surprised if the massive contract comes out or whatever, but I don't know, it's just people wonder why the Cowboys aren't good, like actually good, like seriously good, and like this is the sort of stuff that's why they can't convince a free agent to want to come here because no one likes to see how they treat their players. Every player that leaves pretty much has something to complain about, whether it's contract negotiations, whether it's the fact that they feel like zoo animals during, off-season stuff and training camp and practices because of the amount of constant fan tours that are going on through the facilities and like the weight room is see-through windows that fans can look in and like point and be like, oh, there's there's Michael Parsons, like that sort of stuff. So it's just what used to be like top class, America's team. It's just they've fallen so far from it. And truly, as long as Jerry Jones is alive, the Cowboys are never winning a thing. Honestly.
agreed. Well, so
Yeah.
what about the Commanders, the
Yeah. Also,
NFC
issues in the
Championship runner-ups,
yeah, the NFC, the darlings of the NFL, the Washington Commanders,
oldest
are
team in football?
also are also in some issues as Terry McLaurin has officially requested a trade, as the Commanders citing a reason they don't want to pay him as much money as he's asking is his age, John. Like you said, oldest team in football. And they're like, well, Terry, you're 30, 31 years old. I don't know if I wanna give you 34, 35, 36 million a year as much as
Terry
the
McLaren
other
is
guys.
29 years old.
Okay, he's not even 30 yet,
He's
so they
young by Commanders standards in
and
terms
they're
of age.
still and they're still talking about his age. Dude, who could have predicted that the Commanders' weapons being so old for a rookie quarterback was not going to be a good thing. Do I think Terry McLaurin is gonna get traded? Not even a little bit. I would be shocked if they traded Terry McLaurin. Um, I think that would totally derail, like, their entire honestly, their entire, like, franchise window. We talked about, uh, last in the offseason, like, early in the offseason about how the Commanders' outlook in the future is a little bleak because, yeah, you have this little window, but how soon before Zach Ertz retires? How soon before Terry's too old to really be a great player? You just go trade for Debo, who's already pretty old, like one of the oldest teams in the league. We talked about by the time Jaden Daniels needs to get paid, none of the guys that are on the team that are actually heavy contributors are going to be around again. Like that's pretty much it feels like a fact at this point. But now, like, you trade away Terry McLaurin, and whatever existing window that you may have opened up last year really gets a lot smaller when you take him away. That offense looks so much worse without him in the equation. So I would truly be shocked if he does get dealt, whether it's to New England or what other wide receiver needy team. Maybe the Titans could use another guy, like whatever it is. But I really don't think either of the 2 guys in the NFC East holding out are gonna get traded, but it's just speaks to, that's a classic Josh Harris dysfunction moment,
Well,
and
I think
it
we're going to
speaks
talk about
to
the AFC
a
West
joke.
today. I think
Yeah,
and I think all 4 teams in the AFC West could use Terry McLaurin.
absolutely. All 4 of them absolutely could. Yeah, easily. But again, I don't think he's getting traded. I don't think you think he's getting traded, but it's just a
Because
bad look again when you
we
get to
talk
this
about
point.
Michael, who's the GM of the Commanders? It's Adam Peters.
Adam Peters.
What did when he came from the 49ers? What do the 49ers like to do with their players, Michael?
Let's look
Haggle
at
them into the ground on contracts.
Debo and Ayuk
Ayuk,
and
Nick Bosa,
quarterbacks is always a
a
problem too.
quarterback.
Yeah, so looks like another Josh Harris dysfunctional team is
But
cooking
is
up again.
I'm not defending Josh Harris. Like, is Josh Harris really going there? Like, oh, I don't want to pay. Like, is this is?
No, but it's just like I don't think
I
Josh
mean,
Harris
but I
was
think if
doing
Josh
all that.
Harris was like, dude, get him signed, get him here, I don't care.
It's more so the apathy of Josh Harris. Him not caring is what leads to this. We know all his. Do I think he was in there with the Sixers? Like, oh yeah, you're right. We need the Colangelos, like that sort of thing. Like, no, it just he doesn't care. He's like, oh, league, do whatever you want. We gotta get out Hinkie, throw our hands up in the air. What are we supposed to do? So this is like listen, I understand where you're coming from, Adam. I know Terry is old. That's a good point. And then you talk to Terry, it's like, Terry, you're one of the best in the league. I don't know where we'd be without you. So, figure it out, guys.
Yeah, it does feel like though, like Terry McLaurin. I mean, we talk about like the dark days of the Redskins slash
Washington
Commanders,
football team.
the Washington football team, right?
Yes.
Like he was like their best player by a fairly good margin, right? For a
He was
while.
their like only good player. That's what it
Pretty
felt
much,
like.
right? And like you now finally have the franchise quarterback that you haven't had in God knows how long, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like decades, right? And now you're like, you trade for the left tackle in
Tunsil.
in Tunsil.
You trade
And,
for another receiver in
get
Debo.
another receiver, right? And then you don't restructure their contracts to be cap friendly. You blow all of your cap space that you've been scrunching for, and you didn't think at any point at all that, oh, we need to re-sign Terry. Let's take care of Terry. Like, hey man, great season. You had a career year because we finally put someone that
And we
doesn't
broke
suck
broke
at
through in the
quarterback.
playoffs, won a couple playoff games. Like they won 2 playoff games. Like, Jesus Christ, how can you not, like,
He
think, "All
was like
right,
the only guy that showed up in that NFC Championship
he
game
made
on
a
offense
huge
for the
play early." Absolutely.
friggin' Commanders in that game. Realistically, right? I mean,
He
Jane
had the
Daniels, like
he had the great touchdown. Like, it was I it's beyond, I guess, as like, fans of other Philadelphia franchises, we can we can relate in every sort of way to some sort of dysfunction. But like as in a vacuum as Philadelphia Eagles fans, it's like I can't fathom this. This is really ridiculous that these teams let their best players get into such issues with the trade deadline. Excuse me, with the contract negotiations. It's a disaster. Like if I'm
Yeah,
a
like let's
Commanders fan,
like I think the biggest drama right now in Eagles camp is that Brandon Lee Gowton said Brett Toth screwed up a snap. Why is he still the backup center? And then Brett Toth clapped back saying, that
I've
wasn't
been playing
me.
guard.
I'm playing guard. That wasn't me, moron.
Yeah. So like if I'm a Commanders fan, after last year, I think overall my takeaway is like pretty positive. Had the rookie quarterback, went on a crazy season, a lot of crazy fun one score wins, expecting, you get railed in the NFC Championship game and it sucks and it's the Eagles, all that sort of stuff. But you know what? You can kind of throw your hands up in the air and you're like, you know what? It was still a very good season, a step in the right direction as a franchise. Totally. You think we love Josh Harris, all this sort of stuff. We're on the upward trajectory. You go out and you get a left tackle, so your offensive line is going to be better. You go out and you get Debo, so that really helps out the receiving core as a number two. Like, I should be pretty excited for this year as a Commander fan. And then you just slap me in the face late in July and you're like, oh, by the way, who's probably 90% of Commanders fans' favorite player is holding out and requesting a trade because we couldn't figure out a way to sign. Like, it's ridiculous. It's truly unfathomable.
So we might as well just get the AFC West out of the way then, huh?
Yeah, honestly, we could start with football, considering the massive amounts of stuff that went on with the Major League Baseball trade deadline and whatnot. So
Yeah, a lot of baseball news. Well, baseball I think takes precedence today, but yeah, AFC West.
AFC
So
West, I guess we'll start.
with the
Honestly, I'm going to start with this though. I think this is going to be one of the most competitive divisions in the league. I think this could be the best division in football. This or the NFC North, I think, are my two teams that I think two divisions, sorry, that I think have the best set of four top to bottom. And that starts with the Las Vegas Raiders, who I think could I think this is everyone's it's growing into everyone's popular, like sneaky, not that bad, potentially kind of good team of the season, the Las Vegas Raiders. So they obviously made a quarterback change and they finally got someone that I think we can all agree is like pretty competent, pretty solid. Geno Smith, one of the more accurate quarterbacks in all of football, pretty solid pocket presence. Not one of the best, certainly not one of the worst. Is somewhere in that like 12 to 17 range probably in terms of quarterback rankings if you had to hammer it out.
Yeah, I think Geno Smith's a very solid quarterback. I
Very
think
strong quarterback.
I think he's a very solid
You can
quarterback.
win games with him for sure.
Right. I do think though. Well, let's just talk about the Raiders situation. The Raiders draft night didn't shock anybody when they selected Boise State running back Ashton Genty after the Zamir White experience. The Raiders last year, young quarterback Nate O'Connell could not run the ball at all, and they said,
Yeah.
"Screw it." We saw what the Eagles did with Saquon Barkley. We think Ashton Genty can be, I don't think he's going to be Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry, but he could still be like a very good running back. And I don't know, Michael, because like I thought Bijan Robinson had a lot more juice on like the combine, and like it was this guy wore like perfectly built for the NFL. Where Genty was more of like a bell cow at Boise State. Like he was a guy that ran
Yeah, I don't
over.
think as a prospect he's as exciting as Bijan, but I still think he's a guy that's going to be really hard to tackle. I think that's going to translate. I don't think that was just a college thing. I think that he's going to be hard to tackle at the NFL level.
I mean, I think he's
Um,
going to be like MJD, Maurice Jones-Drew.
yeah,
They're built
yeah,
the same.
very similar builds. I think MJD was a little honestly, I think he was somehow like smaller and stockier, but I think he was also a little bit of a maybe a bit of a better receiver than Genty as well. But I do think Genty he's gonna have a pretty nice year. You look at the Raiders receiving options, it's not great. I do think Jacoby Myers has kind of found himself to be like
Well,
a
I think
solid
Jacoby
receiver.
Myers is going to be a very popular sleeper pick in fantasy now because of Geno Smith. Because
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
they have Brock Bowers, who listen,
Top tight end in the league
best
for sure.
best rookie season ever by a tight end, despite
Yeah,
having
it's
like the worst QB options.
it's besides like George Kittle that I'd take Bowers over everybody else at this point, besides Kittle, I think.
And yeah, and like the Raiders just paid Colton, they gave Colton Miller an extension, their offensive line. They've I would say their offensive line's not bad. Like watching them
It
play,
improved. It definitely
it's improved.
improved.
And
Alex
and then
Capa, Jax Powers Johnson, yeah.
defensively they did a complete overhaul because they hired Pete Carroll to be their head coach, and maybe
Yeah.
we can finally stop hearing Max Crosby, complaining about how bad the Raiders have been since he got there, and oh, I want to trade. Oh no, I don't. Yes, I do.
Yeah, they did cut Christian Wilkins, who seemingly uh
Groped a
was
teammate allegedly, according
yeah, or
to
maybe it could be worse. No, it seems like some bad stuff went down and he's gone. So honestly, like as a player, I think that it hurts the Raiders like a lot, but in terms of maybe like culture and whatnot, it probably is an improvement. So we'll see if it's an improve addition by subtraction sort of situation. But Max Crosby's still very, very good. Their defense is improved. It's still not amazing, and it's going to be probably why they can't fully compete for the division or anything like that. But I think this is a division where the worst team is going to have like 8 wins, 7, 8 wins.
I
Like it's
agree. Did
going to
you
be
see
pretty
Brady
loaded.
was out there practice walking around?
Yeah, like that's always I think a pretty positive vibe. I think if you're a
Well,
player.
I feel like Tom Brady's like is going to be this generation's. I don't know, like him and Michael Jordan. I think are like the same, like in American sports, like the same stature of aura, where they
Sure. So
kind
you
of have.
think they're going to be bad, the Raiders, then?
Well, I don't
Like the
know because
Hornets,
well, no,
the
like
Bobcats?
like Jordan. Here's the problem. This I read this about like why great athletes make horrible executives
Mhm.
is they think that everybody should think like they do.
Oh, for sure. That's executives, that's like coaches too. Like that's a lot of
But like
non-player
you hear that
rules.
term emotional intelligence. Like, does
Yeah,
Tom
for sure.
Brady have emotional intelligence because he came from New England? He went to Tampa. Like he kind of, I don't know. Like guys when they play with Brady, always want to play with Brady. Like no matter what, it seems right. But at the same time, like if guys like, is Brady gonna like? When is Brady gonna like? Is he gonna try and step on Pete Carroll's toes for
I would
certain things?
assume
Because you
I
look at
think
because if you watch Pete Carroll's like coaching style, his coaching style is the exact polar opposite of guys like a Bruce Arians
or
or
Bill.
like a Bill Belichick.
I think that I think that Brady has enough respect for Pete Carroll to not. You know what I mean? Like I think if it was a lesser like I think it was like Josh McDaniels, I think he would scream at Josh McDaniels if he needed to. I think he has a lot more respect for Pete Carroll. I think that the fact that all of Tom's teammates really really liked him, so I think that this will play a little bit better than perhaps you know Jordan had a little bit of a different, I think, reputation with
I think his
teammates. It
teammates
wasn't
were
as
scared of
glowing
him. That's a
positive.
big
Yeah,
difference.
yeah, and I think Brady's teammates were not as scared of him, at least. So I do think that the Raiders are going to have a pretty like. No, I don't think it's going to be like. I think just enough people are talking about it at this point where it's not going to be shocking if they win more than like 5 games or whatever. Like, I think they're definitely gonna. It feels like every team in the AFC West is gonna win somewhere between 8 and like 12 games.
Well, they would hang around games last year. It was just that like Antonio Pierce just wasn't a good head coach. He was like a
No, and
flash in
like
the
Aiden
pan.
O'Connell was your quarterback. Like you can only
Well,
do
remember
so
they had
much,
Gardner Minshew before that too.
Yeah, and Minshew isn't good though. We
Then you
know
and then
that.
you had the whole Devonte Adams situation.
Exactly. All of that is just frustrating. So, yeah, the Raiders. I have actually a relatively positive outlook, but I do think this division is pretty good. I think next we should go to the Chargers. I think that's fair, right? They won the Hall of Fame game. Shout out Trey Lance. Looked actually probably the
What do you
best
think
he's
of my
looked as a
hot take that
professional.
Trey Lance is gonna the Saints should have just signed Trey Lance to be their starting quarterback and not draft Tyler Shuck.
Tyler Shuck. Yeah,
Waste a second
honestly,
round pick. Maybe draft like a corner or like a edge rusher or like a wide receiver in that spot or something.
I agree. But I do think Trey Lance, a part of why he looked a lot better is I think Jim Harbaugh deserves a lot of credit. I think that, he does a really good job instilling confidence. We keep seeing that clip and it's like, oh, you can see the confidence like transferring into Trey Lance's body. And it's like, you kind of do. I don't know, man. Like, I think there's something to that. I think there's something to convincing a quarterback that they're good and how that really can go a long way. Not that like, the 49ers or the Cowboys with Trey Lance were telling him he sucked or whatever, but I think that part of the
Kyle Shanahan didn't want Trey Lance, so
right, Kyle Shanahan is not the type of guy to, I think, instill confidence into a player with like goofy antics. Even look at like Mike McDaniel with Tua. It's like Mike McDaniel, the first thing he did was pull up like 1,000 minutes or whatever of positive Tua plays and was like, "Here, I want you to watch this." Like that sort of stuff really can do a lot for a quarterback and their confidence and whatnot. And I think Jim Harbaugh is a lot closer to that or does stuff like that as opposed to what Shanahan did. So he looked pretty good. Anyways, we're talking about the third string quarterback here. Really does not matter.
well, yeah. So the Chargers, another team that took a running back in the first round, and Omari and Hampton.
Was he a first round pick? Yeah,
Oh
he
yes,
was.
he
Yeah.
was. He was
I
a
wasn't
first
sure if he
round
was
pick.
early second or first, but no, he was first.
But so obviously, year two of Jim Harbaugh, you're thinking that they're going to, you know, take the next step, as you once said that the Chargers should be,
Really
you
good.
know, relegated. Right now, they had an interesting offseason. We'll put it that way. So they added two running backs. They drafted Omari and Hampton in the first round, and then they added the Mr. 1000, we'll call him because he does it every year, Najee Harris, who, as we said, Michael, he's very mid. He's a very, if you need to get,
Yeah.
if it's 3rd and 3, though, like, you're giving him the ball because he'll get 4 yards. But, if it's 3rd and 8, he's only going to catch you 4 yards.
Yeah, like he's not very dynamic, not very explosive. It's going to be an interesting little running back duo. We don't know when Najee Harris is going to be back, by the way. He had that whole firework incident, so
Mm.
I think that's still like kind of pending at the
He went
moment.
to the
But
JPP School of Fireworks.
yeah, but I do think the running back room has improved. Obviously, Herbert, we know he's very good. We can debate all as we want about it. We do know he's a very good quarterback, no matter where you end up putting him. Um, the receivers, I'm still just pretty uninspired. I like Lad McConkey a lot. I think Lad McConkey is actually very, very
Well,
good.
they made another couple moves I think are notable. Is
Sure.
They went out and signed former Eagle Mekhi Becton to play guard, and I'm very curious about that because a lot of these Statland University guys, once they leave the Eagles, tend to flame out.
I do think him playing next to Joe Alt will be very, very helpful. Obviously, it's no Lane Johnson, but I think Joe Alt had a very, very good rookie campaign. And Becton, I think because he was good last year for sure, but I don't think it was as like dominant as it looked at times. I think you benefit a lot from playing in an entirely great offensive line. Like the fact that Becton was the weak link on an offensive line that good, it's pretty dang good. I think alongside Joe Alt, you kind of cover up some issues or some, you know, shortcomings, whatever. But overall, their offensive line is fine. I think it should get better with the run game, especially with those two running backs. Where I do have my concerns is that receiver room. McConkey, I think, is great, but after that, it's a lot of just
Well, then
uninspiring
they
things.
also signed Tyler Conklin because you watched the Hall of Fame game. Will Dissly was getting a lot of reps at the starting tight end, which tells me that Tyler Conklin is going to be the new Charger tight end.
It's like
And
that's not inspiring, really. Either
yeah,
of
he's a
those
very I would say
names.
he's an average tight end. But now the big thing with the Chargers, the reason why they were successful last year, Michael, is that they signed a bunch of guys off the street and like a lot of moves where you're like, these look very uninspiring on paper, but then
Hmm.
Harbaugh just made it work. So if you're a Charger fan, you have to have the same mindset, I would suppose, with some of the guys they signed. And then look at the draft though, too. Like they really nailed their draft last year. Obviously, Joe Alt coming in looking like he's going to be like a franchise tackle, like a lot
Hmm.
of people thought. And then you mentioned Lad McConkey, another guy. Well, in this
And
draft,
Dude, Tarheeb Still too, a late round draft pick.
yeah, Tarheeb still, but they look
He's
at
actually a
this
South
draft.
Jersey kid.
They took Trey. They took obviously Omarion Hampton in the first round. A lot of people, some people thought that he should have been the first running back taken, not Ashton Denty. Some of the draft hot takes where they're like,
Yeah,
"Well, Hampton like looks more like an NFL running back than Ashton Genty does." You know,
whatever that means.
well, whatever. You know, I'm
Yeah.
just saying
No, sure.
that was a
It
draft take. That
existed. It
was well,
existed.
the Chargers. You mentioned the wide receiver room, like it's he they're going to re-sign Keenan Allen. He's visiting the Chargers today, so unless he literally just can't walk anymore, then there's no reason why they shouldn't sign him to compete with,
Quentin Johnston.
Banana Hands, Quentin Johnston, Jalen Rager, and you got Lad McConkey, who's going to be the number one. But they
Yeah.
drafted Trey Harris from Mississippi, who I mean, what do you think, Michael? With like, do you think he's going to be a guy that could just
I mean, I'm
that
seeing a lot of positive stuff, especially as like the fantasy season comes around. You see a lot of positive stuff with him. So, I mean, I think there's room there for him to be helpful to the receiver room, but I, I don't know, man. It just seems a little bleak, and I think we all expected them to be a little more aggressive in free agency, especially with all those receivers asking for new contracts. I felt like a lot of the ones that could put on the move, like I think DK Metcalf would have been an awesome fit with Justin Herbert, like a great vertical passer with one of the best vertical threats in football. And then when he got sent to the Steelers and George Pickens was available, I thought that would have been a great fit with Justin Herbert as well. And I think Pickens could have been a really good fit with Jim Harbaugh as well, like just a better culture guy, whatever. And they just kind of sat around and didn't really make a push for it. So it'll be interesting to see. Devontae Adams was another name that was available that I think the Chargers could have went and gotten, and they just kind of let these receivers go without getting any of them. And I think that's a little, I think, frustrating as a Charger fan that you have to think they didn't really push all their chips in. So it's another team that they made the playoffs last year. Wouldn't be surprised if they missed it. Wouldn't be surprised if they won 10, 11 games. Wouldn't be surprised if they won like 8 or 9 games.
well
Like it's.
they also let go of Joey Bosa too.
Yeah. Yeah,
He's now with the
it was an
Bills, who
interesting season with the Chargers, off season that is.
right. And then I have a hot take here.
Sure.
I think the Chiefs are going to finish in second place.
So do you want to talk about the Chiefs now, or do you want to talk about
I
Denver
mean, well, what do
still
you
out of
think? I mean, like,
I
I
think
know
we
you're
could
going to
still
pick the
talk
Chiefs.
about Denver first. This isn't necessarily a ranking rate yeah, a standing prediction as much as it's just like general vibe. I don't
Their
I'm gonna
schedule
sit here.
sucks, by the way.
I
If you look,
don't Who? The Chiefs or the
the Chiefs' schedule
Broncos?
sucks.
Yeah. Listen, I don't fully disagree with you. I really think if there's ever a year that the Chiefs maybe falter, it's maybe this year. So we'll go to Denver. Why can Denver win the AFC West? Well, Bo Nix,
You hate his guts.
I don't think he's good, but I think
You
I
hate his
can't lie
guts.
anymore. He played pretty well last year. Um, he showed guts. He pushed the ball when it needed to be pushed. He did a job. He wasn't asked to do a ton, but that's kind of, Sean Payton is known as a pretty good coach. I think he does put his players in a position to succeed. The running back room, pretty uninspiring, I guess. RJ Harvey, um, the second round rookie out of UCF, and J.K. Dobbins coming off an injury. It's not super exciting, I guess, but, they just signed Courtland Sutton to keep him around. Marvin Mims had a pretty good year last year. Devon Vele was fine. I think Evan Ingram is a nice improvement for them. I don't think he's amazing, but I think it's a nice improvement. And their offensive line, it remained pretty much the same, right? Like, their offensive line was their
Their
huge
offensive
reason
line
to
is
their
very good.
success.
They're probably the best in the AFC.
It's why they were as successful as they were last year. Their offensive line was giving Bo Nix copious amounts of time, and with not great running backs, they were still able to run the ball even a little bit. And then I think their prize is their defense. Their defense was one of the best in the league last year. They just extended Zach Allen to a 4-year contract extension. DJ Jones stuffs to run really well. John Franklin Myers, Nick Benito, Alex Singleton, former Eagle, but all like just they have a bunch of guys that played probably at the top of their level. So you'd expect a little bit of regression the other way, but I don't think it's anything far enough to make them fall off. And I liked what they did in the offseason. I liked the Dre Greenlaw move, and I liked the Talanoa Hufanga move. I thought those were two solid players available from San Francisco that they poached, and I think will fit in nicely. It kind of brings some nastiness to that defense. As good as it wasn't like it didn't feel nasty. When a defense like it feels a little intimidating. I think those are two guys that are very intimidating for offenses to face. Obviously, they got the best corner in the league with Pat Surtain. I It's a very, very good defense that'll be at the top of the league again. So you combine that with maybe some theoretical Bo Nix improvements, maybe some potential running back room improvements, and all of a sudden, I think, this team, they won what, 10 games last year, 11 games last year? They could definitely have a few things flip their way, and all of a sudden you're winning, 12 games and potentially stealing the division title
Well, I
from the
think so.
Chiefs.
The big thing for the Broncos, I feel like, so Cortland Sutton, as we know, is a very solid, perhaps underrated receiver, right? In the
Yes.
NFL, right?
Definition is solid.
I would have to imagine for their offense to really take that next step, they're going to need, like, it's a Sean Payton offense, Michael. And I would say, like, Cortland Sutton and Marcus Colston are very comparable players if you look at both of their builds and how they play the wide
Mm,
receiver
You
position.
look at those great Saints teams, they didn't have multiple great receivers on the field. It was like whether it was Marcus Colston, like you said, whether it was Michael Thomas, and then like outside of that, it was a bunch of solid guys. Like they had Brandon Cooks for a little bit, but then once he left, it was like
Well, they got like they had named Devery Henderson.
yeah, they just had guys. They had like fine players outside of it that were enough of the Sean Payton experience to be good enough, and I think Evan Ingram is a nice, really good supporting piece for the Broncos.
Well, also I think the guy I'm thinking of, Michael, is Marvin Mims.
He had a nice year last year.
As a breakout, he can stretch the field, and I think for the Broncos to really become a threat in the AFC, where what they have that the other elite teams don't have
Mhm.
is their defense. If you're gonna get into like a possession game with them, as long as like Bo Nix is like this, I don't know, like God, I'm gonna you're
What? As long as
Is he
Bo
like
Nix is
Jalen
like what?
Hurts-ish, where people just dislike him because he doesn't look conventional?
No,
He gets smokes in his first playoff game. Michael, what if he's like Jalen Hurts? What if he is?
I don't
You
want to
didn't like
entertain
Jalen
that.
Hurts until he started playing until like his third year.
No, because he got a lot better.
Well, I don't like
Jalen
maybe
Hurts
that
was a lot
maybe
younger.
that's
I
Bo
don't.
Nix. I don't know.
Maybe. Oh, that's so.
Maybe
Boy, that would be
I
so
like
bad
I
for my
like Bo
brand.
Nix as a prospect way more than the guy the Giants picked, Jackson Dart. That's
I would.
literally like, oh hey, we're gonna try to copy the Eagles.
Dude, if Bo Nix is Jalen, I'm gonna. That's so bad for my brand. That can't happen. But listen, if Bo Nix does, I guess, man, if he doesn't turn the ball over, makes the easy throws that he's given, then I guess, yeah, maybe
Ran
there's some
for close to
similarities.
almost 500 yards and like 6 tutties, Michael.
Bo Nix, like, what was the stat? It was like of all the yards he throws, this many, like that one game, he had like 270 yards and like 230 of it were after the catch, like something like that.
Well,
So
that's the Saints' offense, though.
I know.
Like,
So
like no one was saying like, "Oh, Drew Brees, that yak merchant." Drew Brees.
no,
Everyone called Michael Thomas
slant merchant, yeah.
slant boy, but no one was saying that Drew Brees was a yak merchant, though. You,
No, they weren't. They weren't. It's
you know,
interesting. The Broncos are gonna be a very frisky team to watch for sure. Again, which now leads us to KC, the class of the AFC for the last like 8 years at this point.
right now, history dictates that the team that loses the Super Bowl the following year suffers a down year. The Eagles, as we know, we wanted to fire Sirianni the year after they lost the Super Bowl, after that epic collapse they had. The
Look at us,
Niners
man.
last year missed the playoffs.
Yeah, there's there
The
there's reason. There's reasons that this sort of
Actually,
stuff
the Niners
happens.
both times they lost in the Super Bowl under Shanahan missed the playoffs the following year because they were just ransacked with injuries. The only team that recovered from losing a Super Bowl recently is the Kansas City Chiefs, though. They lost in the COVID Bowl, and then the following year they lost to, the Joe Burrow led Bengals in that playoff game.
They still made a deep playoff run, right?
Right.
So you look at the Chiefs, obviously Mahomes. The running backs are like fine. Pacheco did not look like himself kind of at all last year. It looks like that injury really took a toll. We'll see if he looks better.
Dude, he looked bad in camp. He looked slow.
I
Like,
know, like he might be cooked, so we'll see. Rashee Rice is like probably going to get suspended for part of the year, right? Like I think we're assuming at least 4 games suspension,
well, the commissioner, well,
or is he not? I don't know.
jeez. Andy Reid cracks joke about Rasheed Rice in practice
Yeah, I
after
saw
losing
that.
board
I saw that.
sentence. Wow. Um. Well, like here's the man. We know Rasheed Rice is he had a really promising rookie season.
Dude, I think Rashee Rice is the dog. Like I can't deny it. I think he's a really, really good receiver. Like he was having a great year last year until Mahomes literally took his knee out. Like his own quarterback blew his knee out. I mean, the offense all of a sudden got like capped off again. Now, granted, Matt Nagy is still the offensive coordinator, so I think that is going to just generally limit the offense. But if Rasheed Rice is going to be out on the field for a majority of the season, I really do think in those games we're going to see a little bit more of the old Mahomes that we used to see, where he's just kind of slinging it down the field as opposed to living and dying with everything behind the line of scrimmage and underneath and short routes. Like I know the too high safety was to eliminate that, but I do think the Chiefs want to get back to a little bit more of their explosive offense, like to get back to their if we're in a bind to be able to just sling it and immediately put points on the board instead of having to go on these long methodical drives. Because
But
I mean,
here,
you look at what
but
they did all
Michael,
last year, John. They were grinding out games every single week was a grind. It was low scoring. It was nasty. They were just playing less mistake. They were playing mistake free football in comparison to their opponents. So they were winning all those freaking games. And then they got into a game where they had to keep up with the Eagles and they got boat raced. So I think they want to be able to have that in their bag that they can push it when they need to push it, as opposed to just this slow, methodical, grind it out sort of team. I think they want to open that up. And, if you look at a guy like Xavier Worthy, if he can take a step this year where he showed a good bit of flashes last year, but it was still like you could tell it was super raw. Hollywood Brown can stay healthy. Rice is healthy. I think they could be poised for a much better passing season.
And that's the thing though is I think they can be poised for a better passing season. But Michael, I'm not really a big Matt Nagy guy, and
No, not even a little bit. No
and
one is. I don't. Who's a Matt Nagy guy?
Andy Reid is because apparently a lot of
Well,
their fans after they lost the Super Bowl, like legit wanted him fired because they were
man,
like,
they should. I mean, like, there's a classic. If you look at Patrick Mahomes' stats by season, you can tell when he gets hired. You know exactly when he gets hired. He's been the Kansas City Chiefs senior assistant. He's been the Kansas City Chiefs offensive coordinator since 2023. And you look at Patrick Mahomes' stats, okay. 2018, 5,000 yards. 2019, 4,000 yards. 2020, 4,700 yards. 2021, 4,800 yards. 2022, 5,200 yards. And then 2023, 4,100 yards. 2024, fails to eclipse 4,000 yards. So, Mr. Matt Nagy, you have some explaining to do, man. What the hell are you doing
well,
with the
like you're
passing
so
attack?
this is my point though. Like if the Chiefs canned Matt Nagy and they're like they hired like a Rams guy to be their new OC
Sure.
to have him work with Andy Reid. And he's like, Andy, I have all these cool schemes, and Andy Reid, being considered one of the brightest offensive minds in NFL history, he's like greenlighting it. Then I
Hmm.
would be like, oh my god, the Chiefs are going to score tons of points. No, it's Matt.
It's
Like they're gonna have like Rasheed Rice run like his first game back from suspension running like digs. You know,
no, for sure. It's for whatever every personnel reason for me to believe that the Chiefs are going to be better off. And we talk about better, like they won 15 games for Christ's sake, but to talk about them to be like more explosive of an offense, the coaching cap that is Matt Nagy, I think is very, very plausible. And I think it's part of the reason why we do not hold we are cautious in their expectations. And listen, I feel like eventually normalcy has to hit that franchise. Like it is we talk about how hard it is to get to a Super Bowl after you win one and they won back to back. How hard is it to even do that? And then to get back a third time, even though they lost, it's still really, really hard to get back a third time. So are we going to sit here and they're going to go to 4 straight Super Bowls? That's really, really difficult to do. Are they going to make the playoffs? You'd like to think probably,
well,
but
I would not be surprised if they don't win the AFC West, but they go in as a wild card team and they knock off either the like you mentioned like a few weeks ago, like the Bills, the Ravens.
they still beat one of those
Like
teams.
they beat the Bills, and like then like
Oh my
McDermott, like
god.
McDummy gets fired. Like that's
Yeah.
the catalyst.
Maybe. I think
Like
honestly
this is finally our chance to beat the Chiefs because they're 10-7, and like Matt
it's a
Nagy's
road playoff game for them. Like,
like
yeah,
Matt
yeah.
Nagy's stupid, and like they can't run the ball because their running back room sucks, and they're like Travis Kelsey looks like ancient, and he goes off in the game for like 130 yards and 2 touchdowns, and is
They're yeah. And
you
you look at their offensive line. I think it got like, they lost Joe Tooney, who I think was still a great guard, and they were just playing him a tackle. But then they replaced him with Josh Simmons, who I think could be a very intriguing starting left tackle. I do think Juwan Taylor is not good. I think Trey Smith is very good, and it just so happens that the Eagles embarrassed him. But I do think he's very good.
I have a hot take, but this is kind of like my hot take.
Creed Humphrey, we know is good,
We know he's
so
good. This is kind of like my hot take of this iteration of the Chiefs. You remember the Brady's last year with the Patriots in 2019? They
Yes,
they won that Super Bowl the year before against like a
the
Rams team led
Rams.
by Jared Goof, and he basically pissed
Yeah, that
himself.
Patriots team won what, like 12 games or 11
They
games,
were
and they
they were
lost.
winning games the exact same way the Chiefs were winning last year.
Yeah, but then they made it to the Super Bowl.
But they won the Super Bowl. But
No,
Michael,
not one, but they made it. Like they made it to the Super Bowl again. Like I don't disagree with you, but I
no, no,
feel like
no, 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 no.
last
I mean
year,
the 2019 Patriots, they got bounced in the first round by the
yeah, by
Titans.
the Titans. I think last year was the year for the Chiefs to get bounced early, and then they just didn't. Like I think this could be a it's hard. I could really see it going both ways. I could see it being a somehow bounce back year because of the way it looked all season, even though they won 15 games. Or I could see it being like, okay, this is like you said, the 10 win Chiefs team that doesn't win the division and they got to go play a road playoff game. And listen, maybe it is they finally lose and the AFC gets wide open and Allen and Lamar are going to have their shot. Like maybe the Chiefs go into Denver and they lose a really gritty, tough one. Mahomes turns it over a couple times, or he's got a bad ankle, some garbage. Like just the way that the things sort of go. Like a hot team like the Titans were able to dethrone a very faltering Patriots team. Maybe the Texans are hot at the end of the year and steal the division or something, and the Kansas City's got to go up there, or Kansas City finishes as the 4 seed and has to play, you know, the Jags, who are like a very feisty 5 seed, something along those lines, I think is very realistic. I'm not sure who to predict to win that division. I think in my gut, I'm still like, I'll believe it when I see it when the Chiefs don't win the division. It's so hard to say. Like if Rasheed Rice is healthy and plays most of the
I mean, I
year,
was
I
thinking
think
I
they're
was
passing
thinking
him.
along the lines of like a 2023 like Astros team
Like three
they
Astros.
they don't win their division, but they're just a pain in the ass to put away in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, they did win their division. They won it on the
Oh,
last
they
day.
did. Oh, that's right.
But
Well,
they were still a pain in the ass to put away. Like it'll I think knock on wood, I think the Eagles and I guess the Buccaneers in the COVID Bowl. I think those are the two easiest games that any team will ever play against the Chiefs in the playoffs. I don't think they will ever put out a worse performance than those two games. But anyways,
that's how
I guess
baseball.
we got to talk about their defense,
Oh, the
which
Chiefs
is like
defense.
it's always good and like I think they're a ticking time bomb, I
I
guess,
would agree.
whatever,
The
in terms
Chiefs
of it
defense
getting
is
bad.
very luck based when it comes to turnovers. And listen, like this is the thing. Like I thought Trent McDuffie had a down year a little bit,
Hmm.
and like Michael, this is the problem when you're really good. You lose guys all the time in free agency. It's hard to restock, and like Chris Jones battled injuries all season. I think he's gonna be. I think he's like 2022, like Fletcher Cox. He can't play 80% of the snaps. He's gonna have to
No,
rotate. I
they
would
gotta get
not be
younger.
surprised if you see some stat where it's like Chiefs defense against the run when Jones is off the field. They give up like 6.5 yards per carry. Chiefs defense when Chris Jones is on the field like 2.8 yards per carry.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah. Anyways, let's get to some baseball. Where do you want to start?
Let's just talk briefly about this altercation, and we'll go more. I want to talk about
Oh
this more
yeah,
next week. Yeah, so Rob Manfred almost completely violated the CBA and could have potentially caused baseball to be shut down if you know guys weren't being paid tons of money. I suppose.
yeah. So Rob Manfred, he goes on these tours every year to try to check in and see the vibe of just how each team's feeling, and like it's pretty standard, like pretty general stuff. But he's in there and it starts alluding and hinting towards the CBA negotiations and a salary cap starts the vibe of that conversation comes up, and Bryce Harper, the player that he is, has always kind of stood in favor of the players and all that sort of stuff. He was very vocal during the COVID lockout. Didn't think that the league was doing their best to try to play as many games as possible. Um, Even the following year, 2022, when people forget they did lock out and miss a series in 2022. They had to push the season start back a little bit further. Bryce tells Manfred, "If you're here to talk about a salary cap, you can get the f out." And pretty pretty valid
We
answer. Nick
apparently stood
Castellanos,
nose to nose to him.
nose to nose, and Nick Castellanos said like, "Yeah, just another day," which wow, kind of funny. Manfred almost got to give him a little credit. Said, "I'm not going to get the f out of here," which kind of funny. Good for Manfred, I guess, in that regard. But Bryce did. They made up. Not a big deal. Not the end of the world. But Nick Castellanos had some pretty big quotes. As we know, he's very much critical of the owners that don't like to invest in their team and spend a lot of money. He's like, we got to stop acting like owning a baseball team is the same as owning a nail salon. It doesn't need to be a positive asset every single year, which is true. Your baseball team does not need to be a positive asset every single year if you own it, because eventually, when you do decide to sell it, you're going to sell it for like 10x of what you bought it for, maybe even more. So it's true that it's an asset that will grow eventually by the time you want it to
Yeah,
sell.
but here's the thing, though, Michael, in Major League Baseball. So, yeah, like Casty's right, but the big thing is like, why are you coming into our clubhouse talking about a lockout? That's like going into a marriage and talking about
Yes.
we may get divorced 2 years from now.
Pretty common, 50% of marriages like that. That's where you just don't say that. You don't. You can't. You don't like 2 years in advance when the commissioner is like flirting with a potential lockout. That's a bad look. It's a
He's
really
doing
bad
it
look.
without any union representation there.
Yes, which is also bad
That's why
luck.
Bryce told him to get at the f out
Hmm.
because he's trying to circumvent the union, and we know, unlike the NFL union, which is an absolute joke,
Horrible.
the baseball union is the most powerful of
Dude,
all
it's
the four
awesome.
unions.
They like never lose. The baseball union is
Yeah,
undefeated.
because these teams exactly because they don't have a strong national TV contract to
I was
fall
just gonna
back on.
say, yeah, the TV deals being as big as they are in the NFL and the primary source of revenue for the NFL is what holds a lot of the power with the league itself and the owners and stuff. Whereas each team in baseball has to get their own TV deal. Like they have national TV deals for like Sunday Night Baseball and Apple TV Fridays and Fox Big Saturday games, whatever. But each team needs their own personal TV deal, and we see there are like 5 teams that still do not have a official TV deal, and MLB just kinda carries their games with their, broadcast look or whatever, like the Padres are a notable one that don't have one, but, the Phillies, it's their responsibility to get a contract together with NBC Sports
Well, the
Philadelphia to
Phillies own
you know,
25% of NBC Sports Philadelphia. They own a chunk of the
helps,
network. So
helps.
that's
So,
so. But why do the Phillies own the chunk of the network? Well, one, since 2000, they've won more games than they've lost.
a good start.
Two, they've won a championship in the last 25 years. Three, they're a well-established team in this area.
Yeah, they
Four,
have a strong fan base.
four, they own their ballpark, and their ballpark,
One of the betters in
all the
baseball.
arenas is considered the best one, I think, right?
Sure. Yeah,
We'll talk.
easily. My
We'll
God.
talk about the building a dome at the link next week. Well, we're not going to talk about that today, but like, in other words, like the Phillies know how to. John Middleton knows how to run a successful business, right? A
Yeah.
lot of these other teams are owned by these like equity firms who don't know how to run a business. So
Or a cheapskate owner, like, that doesn't
exactly,
wanna
or they're
spend their
using
money.
AI to like chat GPT. No, not that, but like they don't
I
know how
get
to
your
run a
point, yeah.
business.
Yeah.
So
It's a
like when it comes to
the
like
whole issue is the salary cap, like,
is
that's
this
the
salary
whole
cap, which is
issue.
to me is this is I'm just gonna make. Can I just say my point and then the floor will be
Yeah.
where's yours? The salary cap in Major League Baseball is a hypocritical mess because the teams that mention it are the poorest of poor teams that would force them to spend more money on players. And a
Will
team like
say, very funny that the Yankees also mentioned for the salary cap, but that's just because Hal Steinbrenner is nothing like his father. Go ahead.
precisely, and they're just, like getting into a long drawn out negotiation with Aaron Judge is,
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Pretty embarrassing. It's probably why they haven't even, they've only been in the World Series once since 2009, and they're the freaking New York Yankees. Anyway, um, not that I have room to talk as a Phillies fan, but we made the same amount of World Series appearances to
Listen,
2009. So,
listen, listen.
so
This is
that's
the year.
so you're on the Phillies level there, Yankees. It's kind of embarrassing, but um, anyway, like it's almost like hey, we're sick of paying all this money, but here, Juan Soto, here's $70 million a year. Like, you're complaining about salaries, and yet you're the ones indulging in it. So,
It's
like,
just yeah. It's tough,
and like,
man.
besides, with all the, especially like the Dodgers deferred all this deferred money, how's that going to work with the salary cap?
That's
That
what
doesn't
like
make that doesn't work. And then, like, what, like, when you institute a salary cap, who is this supposed to benefit? Exactly. Like, is this supposed to make, like, the whole point of the NFL salary cap was the NFL salary cap was created, Michael, which is the first salary cap in sports, by the way, right? In American sports. It was created to create competitive balance in the NFL because the Steelers of the 70s dominated that decade. The Niners of the 80s dominated the 80s. Then you started to have the Cowboys start dominating the 90s. The salary cap was created to create parity in the sport.
baseball doesn't need that. Baseball has good parity as is, you
But
know.
how does it? Here's the thing, though. They want to create a salary cap to drive up franchise values. Michael, has the NHL salary cap driven up the franchise value significantly of their teams?
No, of course not.
No. Has this was the
If anything,
salary
the
cap?
salary cap implementation of the NHL that killed like they had a full season lockout that like killed a lot of momentum that hockey had. It like before that they were probably considered the fourth sport a little bit to begin with, but that like comfortably put them in fourth and has given them no room to climb back up into the relevancy. There's a reason that hockey gets thrown to the wayside and it really gets rooted back to that, you know. But hockey also had multiple teams going bankrupt. Like that wasn't, you know, that is not what's happening in baseball. This is just owners like of the Pirates and whatnot that are like, oh, the Dodgers spend too much money, and the Phillies and the Mets they spend too much money. That's not fair. When there's a salary cap, do you think that the Pirates are going to all of a sudden spend a lot more money, even if there is a floor? Do you think the Pirates are going to get near the cap?
It's
No.
because they want to cap. It's because they think if they cap Skeens' potential contract after he's done his 6 years, that they could keep him and they could sell tickets.
Sure. Someone's
But
going to
it's
pay
not.
him. That's not him. No, it's dumb. It's just this is a way for the owners to put more money in their pockets with a salary cap where they can commit to paying players a lot less and like a salary floor without a cap. Is it going to change a ton? Like probably not, but I don't think a ton needs to be changed at this point. You want things to change, you need to get new owners. Simple as that. Like we want the Pirates to spend money while Paul Skeens is on like his rookie deal essentially and is making very little in comparison to what he's worth. That is not going to change with any amount of rules that you put into place long as Bob Nutting as the is the owner of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Simple as that. Like that will not change even a little bit. Even if you make a salary floor of like $80 million and it's like, okay, every year your payroll's got to be at least whatever it is, it won't matter. He'll just throw money around to some like fine-ish players just so he can hit the floor and call it a day. He's not going to push the bounds of the salary cap to get close to it because he doesn't care about winning. That's the actual crux of the issue. He isn't throwing the money around to help better the Pirates and put them in a position to win. He would just be throwing money around to fit into the parameters that he needs to fit into. Two very different things. The Phillies have spent so much money on players that maybe don't even deserve it because of the desire to win and the need of pushing them to a level of competitiveness. They spent money to reach that level because John Middleton does want to win. He does care about a winning baseball team and putting a winning product out on the field. All the teams like the A's and the Pirates and the Marlins and would be doing is just spending to fit into parameters, not to produce a winning baseball team like the Phillies do, like the Mets do, like the Dodgers do. It is a humongous difference, and it really only comes from up top. It has nothing to do with the market size, it has nothing to do with whatever. It's all about winning. And it's why you see the Yankees they spend, but they don't spend as much money as they should as the New York frickin' Yankees, because Hal Steinbrenner doesn't care about winning the way that George Steinbrenner did. George Steinbrenner cared a ton about winning, so he'd throw money at everybody because the Yankees could get everybody, and that's all they want to do. All they want to do is get everybody. So you throw all the money in the world out at everybody. But now here's Hal, who doesn't care about winning a ton, so he's not going to bend over backwards and do it just because the Yankees checkbook is never ending. Like you said, we had Aaron Judge to the Giants tweets of like, oh my God, he just signed with the Giants. And it was like, oh, last minute fell through. The Yankees like matched whatever the Giants offered, and he's coming back to the Bronx. How does it even get to that point with Aaron frickin' Judge, dude? He's the modern day Barry Bonds. What are we talking about here? And that's just, that's a team that should spend a lot more money and doesn't. And that's why they want a salary cap, so they can like Hal Steinbrenner wants a salary cap, so the Yankees can continue to kind of do what they're doing and throw their hands up and say, well, there's a cap, guys. Not as much. They want one too because Henry owns the frickin' Liverpool or whatever. Like,
and they spent a ton of money actually.
They did. The Red Sox, did they spend money? No.
No, so like, yeah, exactly. So the whole like, to me, and listen, I hate Rob Manfred. Rob Manfred is a horrible commissioner, but he's also in an unenviable position where, he acts on that best interest of the owners, but the owners they're just horrible. They're horrible. Like, basically, like, you would think, like, if you're trying, like, for the health of the sport, someone like a Middleton should go to, like, some of the big, like, the more, like, well-known owners should just go, dude, like, the owners of the Marlins. He's like, dude, I'm like, we're paying this luxury tax. It goes to the Marlins, and they're pocketing the money. Why are they pocketing the money I'm spending on players, capping me on what I can spend for them to profit?
And that, like, revenue sharing, I get it to an extent, but like that's where it goes badly, when those owners are just using it as means to make money and not means to invest in the team. It's a huge difference.
Look at the A's, Michael. Yep. Look at the A's.
The A's have an awesome young core, and just this will be a good, decent segue into the trade deadline. Yeah. Yep. Anyways, let's get into the trade deadline.
Great segue into the MLB trade deadline. We're talking about the A's. So, Michael, we talk about the trade deadline. What do we talk about? We talk about winners and losers.
Yeah, probably the biggest name, I'd say. I don't know about the best player, because I think the Phillies might have got the best player, but I think the biggest name that got moved at the trade deadline was Mason Miller. Young, bunch of years of control closer that throws 104 or whatever. Moved to the San Diego Padres for the highest prospect that has been traded since like Eloy Jimenez, Yohan Moncada, like a bunch of guys that more often than not, they don't always tend to pan out. But the number 3 prospect in all of baseball, Leo DeVries, as the headline, along with Brandon Nett, Henry Baez, and Eduardo Nunez. So the number 3 overall prospect Sorry, the number 1 prospect in the Padres system, the number 3 prospect in the Padres system, 13 and 17 as well for Mason Millers and JP Sears. Sears, solid back end of the rotation depth with some control. Mason Miller, obviously the biggest prize there.
Right.
AJ Preller is a psychopath. He is literally a crazy person at the
He's
trade
playing
deadline.
MLB The Show.
Like he gets in there and he has to be like on something, and he's just like he treats every trade deadline like the world is ending, like in on the last day of the World Series, and honestly, it's very entertaining. So trading the best prospect in the system, and it's the number 3 in all of baseball, um, really remarkable decision to do for a closer. But it looks like plans are to make him into a starter as the
Right.
contract goes on, bring him back to be a starter, which in that case, it's a little more intriguing, I think, if you can
Mason
get
Miller,
him
make
to.
him a starter.
Well, he was a starter when he first came up, and then he got hurt, and they were like, "All right, you know what? Let's make him a reliever." So I think the option
Yeah,
is
you
gonna
know what?
be
It's funny, Michael.
get the velo
We
down.
brag about the years of control, and he's gonna probably like blow his elbow out at
Well,
some
it
point.
depends how they try to move, how they try to treat him. So yeah, the Padres, they added that monster to what was already a really damn
I
good
wonder. I
bullpen.
wonder if the Padres were so aggressive. The Padres were not just aggressive in getting him.
No, no, they also traded 6 prospects to the Baltimore Orioles for, um, Ramon Laureano and Ryan O'Hearn, 2 just very, very solid available bats. They also traded a decent prospect for Royals catcher Freddie Fermin, who's just not very good. The Padres, I would definitely call it's a winner. It's overall a winner of the deadline, despite the fact that they really pillaged the entire farm. Because listen, you added Mason Miller to a bullpen that was already one of the better ones in baseball. They had 3 all-stars in the bullpen, and then they added Mason Miller to it. Really something beyond comprehension.
It
The
would have been
lineup,
like if it would have literally been like if the Phillies traded for another starting pitcher.
yes, yeah, but like not just any starting pitcher. It would have been like if the Phillies traded for like Garrett Crochet, like
Yes,
that sort of thing. Like
yes,
yeah, so insane.
perfect comp.
The Their lineup got a lot better, with O'Hearn and Laureano. Like, the Padres are gonna be a pretty loaded team with the lineup,
The
loaded team with
Padres
the bullpen.
obviously feel like if, especially with the Dodgers, if they keep getting banged up, that they probably look at the National League as a whole. They're thinking like, okay, the Phillies offense is going to hinge upon the performance of one particular man who happens to wear number 28 and plays third base for the Phillies. The Mets are the Mets. The Mets have no decent starting pitching; that they're just mid. We'll just, we'll
No, I
we'll
mean, listen,
we'll, we'll, win,
this
we'll
isn't
win
all
every
just
game in the
them.
postseason. Like if we can score 4 or 5 runs and our starting pitcher doesn't completely implode on the
Yeah,
mound, we can
that's the
win the
big
World
question.
Series.
That's the big question because the Padres, I would
Padres
say
never won the World Series, by the way, Michael. Just want to
their
also mention
biggest
that as well.
their biggest weakness entering the deadline was the starting rotation, and they didn't do anything, not anything. They didn't do much to
Well, there
address
wasn't
it. You
really
got
many starting pitchers teams were willing to part with, like Mike Soroka.
Well, yeah, even though I'd put him as a bullpen, but regardless of all that, like they as good I think as they did with the deadline, I still like their outlook to me. They got better, but it didn't totally change. Like you look at the rotation, and it's like you Darvish just got back from injury and it does not look good, like at all. Nick Pivetta has been your best pitcher, and like he's been good, but I do think that there's some legitimate concern to like how much he can sustain it for the rest of the year. Randy Vasquez is like a very comfortable back end of the rotation guy. JP Sears is very comfortable back end of the rotation guy. Dylan Cease was rumored to be going to be traded, struggles, is seemingly gotten unlucky, but it's like, I don't know. It feels like it's a pro peripherals guy, but what he's actually giving you is just not that great. He'll give you like 4 great innings, striking out a ton, Then all of a sudden he like walks two guys in the fifth, and he's very susceptible to the home run ball. And it just their rotation is still very much a question mark, but their bullpen is probably the best in baseball, and their lineup got very, very strong. They're going to be in a great position to compete once the playoffs are around for sure. Definitely a positive, I think. Um, another big name that got moved, Carlos Correa going back to the Houston Astros. The Twins dumped everything, anything and everything. Byron Buxton pled his allegiance to the Twins,
He
and
would
they
have been
said,
traded
okay,
too.
everything is gone. Correa, and also a lot of cash to pay off a lot of the Correa contract, is gone for like a very middling prospect. So Isaac Paredes is going to be out for the season for Houston, and they needed a third baseman, and they got Correa, and they're going to put him at third base. He played there
And we
yesterday.
know about Astros demon magic. They'll probably fix him or somehow, and he'll go back to maybe being like a 800 OPS guy.
He's got a great playoff pedigree. I think there's a lot of vibes there that are positive. I'm sure everyone in Houston, he never showed any disdain towards them, for not keeping him, all that sort of stuff. He always wanted to go back. So I think he's thrilled to be back there. Really, the Astros had a nice deadline. I think with getting Bregman back, and then also, also getting Jesus Sanchez from the Marlins, getting Ramon Urias from the Orioles, I thought was a fine add as well. They made some nice moves. I felt that Houston definitely they always tend to get better at the deadline, and I think they did yet again.
Yeah, so obviously this year was everyone was just loading up on bullpen. Even if you had a stacked bullpen, you still went out and got bullpen help, right?
Mhm,
So like the New York Mets added Ryan Helsley, which
mhm,
right after the Phillies made their big move in acquiring Joan Duran.
mhm.
And I was like, yeah, but they need a starting pitcher. Like that's the thing. It's like the Phil. I would say if we're talking about winners and losers, let's just go. You mentioned are the Padres a winner or a loser?
Winner, they're a winner
Okay, what do you think about the New York
overall.
Mets? Are they winners or losers?
They're like winners, but I don't think it's that great. You look at what they did. Ryan Helsley, definitively like not one of the top two, maybe top three relievers dealt, honestly. Um, felt like you know, we got to answer what the Phillies just did. They traded like some fine, like they also traded a lot for Tyler Rogers from the San Francisco Giants. Granted, those prospects were kind of trending down, but they got two bullpen arms and they got Cedric Mullins. And I think Cedric Mullins is not very good. I think he's past his best days.
I
I think
agree.
Helsley is like solid. He's a good enough player for them. I think Rogers is also pretty solid. But I overall I don't think their moves totally move the needle for them, I'll say.
Right. They needed to add an impact player, in my opinion, and my opinion, they I think Ryan Helsley is a good closer, but they already have the highest paid closer in baseball. I I don't know. I think Edwin Diaz is the highest paid closer in
Yeah,
baseball,
for sure. Yeah.
right? On their team. So, and I don't know, man. Like, I thought they were going to go just pay out the wazoo for Stephen Kwan or Luis Robert.
I
And
mean, I think the White Sox were just dumb and not trading Robert.
I
They
would agree.
were
Like,
asking for the
so
moon.
let's talk about, I want to go through the National League. We'll go through winners and losers, then we'll go to the American League, then we'll talk Phillies and wrap up the show.
Okay.
So, staying in the National League East, let me ask you this. Do you think the Braves are losers for not trying to offload players?
I mean, I think they did, honestly. I don't think there were any takers on Marcell Ozuna. I don't think anyone wants the abuser DUI guy that's got a really bummed hip at this point, who also has 10-5 rights and would probably waive most trades that, like, I don't think he'd want to get traded. But other than that, like who were they going to trade? You
Like they
know,
traded Rafael Montero, which is not a surprise, but
so
Rafael Montero.
like the Braves, I just don't think had a ton to sell off, honestly. And I think for what it's worth, they're waiting out for Snicker to like step down, retire at the end of the year, and I think they're planning on like they have enough guys on the team that are under contract that I think they're ready. They're going to try to push it again next year. So
Mm,
I can't even kill the Braves. I feel like they didn't even have a ton to sell off.
okay. Uh, we'll save the Phillies for last, so we'll go to the National League Central. Brewers traded for guys who were hurt. Like,
The Brewers didn't do much, and like that's very classic Brewers, honestly. Like they're they're a team that's I think overperforming their talent at the moment, and they tend to kind of always do that. But I think they have good pitching. I think their hitting is a bit meh at the moment, and I think they could have used a nice little jolt from the deadline. But I mean, in classic Brewers fashion, they just kind of sit around and hope what they have is enough, and hope things go well in October. And they, unfortunately for them, usually don't. So pretty normal Brewers deadline.
what do you think about the Cubs?
I think the Cubs had a fine deadline. They made some nice moves. They got Willie Castro from the Twins, which I think is a nice utility add. They got Taylor Rogers, the other Rogers brother, which I think is just again solid arm. I think Mike Soroka from the Nationals is a really good move if they decide to put him in the bullpen. I mean, he was great in the bullpen last year. Struggled as a starter this year. I think the Nationals weren't using him right. They also got Kittredge from the Orioles. They got a lot of like just bodies to put in their bullpen and then a nice utility back. Because if you look at their lineup, we think their lineup's really good. You look at their starting rotation, it's like pretty good. I don't think they were in the means of getting it a lot better. They need some bullpen help, and they got some solid band-aids. So I think it was like a fine deadline for the Cubs.
You were surprised the Cardinals didn't go full on sell. Like heard reports about the Phillies trying to trade for one of their everyday players, Brendan Donovan. Being
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. I think their asking price was probably pretty high. The Cardinals, they're one of those weird franchises. They never like to fully commit to being bad, even if their fans don't really go to their games as much anymore. Like they're just kind of weird in that way. I mean, they traded Helsley, which was their best, I guess asset to move off of, but yeah, they didn't trade any other bats, which I felt could have been useful. It felt like a lot of those bats that have control and stuff, I think were being asked very, very high price points, and I don't think any team's really willing to pay it. So
okay. What do you think about? Obviously, we'll go with the reigning World Series champions. How about a team that's always been
oh
super
wait, we
active?
got to talk about the Reds, right? The Reds made a move, huh?
Oh, that's
The
a good
Reds,
point.
the Reds got Brian Hayes. Listen, the Reds, man, they're in a playoff spot at the moment. They're that sixth team ahead of the Giants at the moment, who we'll talk about, but they've been very bad since the Devers trade. The Reds look like they're probably going to end up being that last wild card in the National League. Brian Hayes, very awful hitter, like not even start, like not even, probably not even major league quality bat, but one of the best gloves in all of baseball. And the Reds hope that, they've had a black hole at third base. It feels like since like Scott Rowland, honestly. And I think that, they they just needed some stability there, and at least Hayes, he has some control. It's not a great contract, but if you can get something out of the bat, it turns into a pretty solid one. So I was honestly shout out to I think the Reds for even trying. They usually never do anything, and I got to give them a little bit of credit for taking on a guy. So yeah, we'll go to the Dodgers, who they did pretty much nothing. Feels like they got like they traded away Dustin May, and then they acquired Brock Stewart from the Twins, who, like, I guess I would have taken Brock Stewart. You got Alex Call from the Nationals, who I really didn't want Alex Call. the Dodgers just got a very, very much very little amount of names, very little amount of anything. They're just kinda, I think, rocking out with their team, which, I mean, I don't think is necessarily a bad idea for them, honestly. I'm just more surprised because they usually never do that, so
Well, we just talked about the Padres.
yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on the Diamondbacks? They obviously sold Eugenio Suarez, but they traded Merrill Kelly
Mhm.
to the Rangers. The Rangers went up and loaded up with their pitching staff
Yeah.
as well. What do you think about the Diamondbacks not going full sell mode like people kind of thought they were?
I
Un-
think that, I'm I mean, they sold off Merrill Kelly, like you said, but it feels like the starting pitcher market was not, the buyers of starting pitchers were not willing to pay the price. I think the Diamondbacks were probably asking for a lot for Zach Gallen, despite the fact that Zach Gallen has
Sucks.
greatly struggled. Like, yeah, he's just not been good. And I don't know. I feel like if, like, the Diamondbacks sold Naylor, they sold Suarez, and they sold Kelly. Like, they sold a decent bit. I think the only other guy that would have made a lot of sense to move on from would have been Gallen, and they didn't. So I don't think they, it's not like they didn't commit to it. I just think, I don't know. I think that the starting pitcher asking prices were really,
I
really
think
high.
I think a lot of these GMs saw what relievers were going for, and they're like, "Why are you paying at the wazoo for a seventh or eighth inning guy when I got a guy that's going to give you 6 innings every time he's on the mound?"
Yeah, no, I get the
You're
logic
overpaying,
behind it, but
basically saying you're overpaying for 3 outs. I got a guy that can get you 18 outs.
But Kenny, you know, I think, I don't think the starters that were available were that great. Like, that's
Well,
another
yeah, they're all
thing
having
too.
down years. Like, why are you going to trade? Like, if you're trading for Sandy Alcantara, who the Marlins were furiously shopping,
Yeah.
that's a move for next year. That's a move that's going to happen in January.
But that's a move that you make if you, like, have a pretty good rotation as is, and you're like, "Alright, this is a flyer that, if we can kind of figure him out, all of a sudden it's like, wow, look at what we just stole at the deadline." But, like, if you're in desperate need of starting pitcher help, to, like, go grab a guy as a flyer and then you throw him in there and he gets rocked, it's like, okay, well, that sucked, you know?
Like,
So,
I thought for sure the Dodgers were going to get like an Alcantara or even a Gallon. Like,
sure, I thought
because
so
that's what
too,
they
but
do at the deadline. They trade for guys where you're like, if another team got him, you're like, wow, that's a stupid move. Or like, wow, they overpaid for that because he's having a really bad season. But it's like, oh, it's the Dodgers. They're going to fix him magically and then he's going to play really well.
mhm,
See Hernandez Kike. See
yeah.
Lynn Lance. See Kopech Michael.
Yeah.
You know?
No, they do it every time.
So what do you think about the Giants on was this they were almost like in fire sale mode like the Twins.
It was pretty, I think, just unfortunate circumstances for them because,
They traded
you
for
know,
Devers.
they go out, they make the Devers move a few weeks before the deadline, and it seemed like, man, the Giants, they're playing good ball. They added Rafi Devers, like, they're definitely gonna be buyers. Like, this is a random, really good Giants season for them. Here we go. And then, I mean, they've scored the least amount of runs, and they've have the worst record in baseball since acquiring Rafael Devers. And, like, do I think, "Oh, this is a Devers?" Like, no, I just think it's just one of those things, man. The Giants' offense always struggles, as much as we said they still have not had a 30 home run guy since Barry Bonds. They just struggle to hit. They really do. It doesn't really matter who they have. They're always struggling to hit, and I think what was good on them is that, you acquired Devers and the contract. You acquired Devers for a lot of years. He is going to be there for a long time. There was absolutely zero need to force yourself in a position to buy. So I think they made a hard decision, which is like, listen, we got Devers. We thought things would go differently. The way the last few weeks went have gone very south. No reason to keep it. Let's sell. And honestly, I got to give them credit. They sold, and they sold pretty well. They sold Yastrzemski for Junior Marte, which I thought was funny, but sold Yastrzemski. You sold Camilo Doval at the buzzer. You sold uh, Tyler Rogers, which I thought was actually a pretty decent fallback, even if those prospects are trending downwards. They sold a lot. I thought they were going to send Verlander back to Houston, but they didn't. But yeah, the Giants pretty much an open sale after getting Devers. It's got to be disappointing, but their sight's got to be on for the offseason. I think they're going to have a pretty big offseason.
I think they will as well. They're clearly willing to spend money, and that Buster Posey's obviously very aggressive. I think
Yeah.
a lot of these bullpen guys who got traded, Michael, are rentals, so the Dodgers might just the Dodgers. Jesus, the Giants might sign some of them back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so why? So why not get some prospects back, especially because the Giants farm system, Michael, like isn't very good. Not very
No, it's
good.
not. It's not.
Not very good. So yeah. I mean, come on, man. The Rockies. Are you a little surprised the Rockies didn't trade Mickey Mooney?
Honestly, no. If I was the Rockies and if I was Mickey Moniak, I would not want to leave Colorado. Like that's like, failed number one overall pick, having a pretty solid year this year. He hangs on in Colorado for a little bit, plays well for the next couple of years. I think he could get a decent little paycheck once his free agency comes around. Honestly,
Yeah.
so
All right. Well, we got to pick up the pace a little bit. I apologize.
you're good. You're good. Yeah.
Yankees completely
Huge
overhauled their
deadline.
bullpen.
Huge deadline. Very funny that all four of their big acquisitions at the deadline
Last night.
single-handedly led them to lose one of the craziest games all season against the Marlins. Jake Bird, who I was actually pretty intrigued with, I viewed him as like the right-handed version of Tanner Banks. Comes in and gets absolutely railed in a 6-run game against the Marlins. Then they bring in David Bednar to kind of stop the bleeding,
Yeah, they
and
have
he
three
doesn't do that.
closers:
He
Bednar,
doesn't do that.
Duvall, and Devin Williams.
He doesn't do that at all. Bednar gives up a home run. He gets railed around. And then they bring in Camilo Doval to be like, all right, we have the lead. Let's just get out of here. This ugly game, whatever. He gives up hits to give up runs. And maybe the game wouldn't have been tied, but their deadline acquisition, Jose Caballero from the Tampa Bay Rays in right field, very good good defender, good fielder, just little league style, doesn't get the glove down on a ground ball in the outfield, goes under his glove, tie game, and the Marlins walk it off on the next at bat. Really a ridiculous, ridiculous loss. It's crazy because honestly, all four of those guys, if the Phillies traded for all four of those, any four of those guys, I would have been like, oh, nice. I would have been pretty happy with it. And that just goes to show that sometimes, and I grant it was the first game, but just goes to show that sometimes stuff is just a legitimate disaster and there's nothing you can do. I don't think they had a bad deadline. I think they honestly had a pretty good deadline. But if last night is indicative of what those pieces are going to look like for the rest of the season, then oh boy. But overall, I think they made some pretty good moves. They didn't give up a ton for like Bednar, who was easily one of the most coveted relievers out there. So
Yeah. Same thing with Duvall. They didn't give up a whole lot for him, but they gave
nope.
up. Yeah. So. Yeah. Kind of going forward though, like Blue Jays, I think they're losers, man. Like at the deadline, they got Shane Bieber from the Guardians, who is coming off a serious arm injury. That's like a total wild card. Like that's like
Mm-hmm.
a legit flyer. They have the best record in baseball. But
Mm-hmm.
Michael, geez, man, like I feel like this is my whole vibe is I feel like the teams that are active at the deadline and make moves, as opposed to teams that don't, win the World Series, right? If you stand pat and you're a contender and don't make any moves of note, then like once it's like World Series time, you get in trouble.
Usually,
Unless you
yeah,
have a super team like the Astros a couple years ago.
yeah. The Blue Jays.
Even the Dodgers made a ton of moves last year that
I
paid off.
do. I do think the Blue Jays needed to. I think they need to push their chips in a little bit heavier than they did. I think they have a really nice team. I do. I think their
But you
rotation's
have
good. I
George
think their
Springer
lineup's
having
good.
like a career resurgence. Like obviously,
It would have been worth pushing all in for Toronto, I
yes,
think. Yeah. But
yes.
they really didn't.
Red
Anyways,
Sox. I mean, come on, man.
they stood pat. They didn't really do much of anything. They traded for Dustin May, which is like it's not a flyer, but it's
Laughable.
like he just hasn't been very good. Like, you're just kind of you're
Yeah,
trading for him with the hopes that he figures it out because they
yeah.
desperately needed starting pitching.
Breslow, the analytics guy, thinks he could probably fix him, but he's about as
Yeah.
popular as Crotch Rot in the city of Boston, their general manager.
Yeah.
Uh, Looking pretty smart after that whole Devers trade. Not gonna lie, they're looking pretty good now because he looks like an absolute cancer out
Yeah.
in San Francisco.
Yeah.
What do you think about the Rays getting Griffin Jacks? Like that to me, that's like they traded
It's just
Taj
such a Rays
Bradley.
move,
That
like,
is such a Rays move. Like I would not be shocked if
that they try to
they,
turn him back into a starter.
or they flip him next year and get way more.
Maybe. Yeah, it's such a total Rays move. They cut their losses with Taj Bradley, who showed flashes but could never really put it together. Um,
Was Taj Bradley one of the players they got back when they traded? No, no, never mind. Sorry.
no.
What do you think about the Orioles deadline of just sell, 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 sell?
I mean, they had to. They started the year really piss poorly. They had no one to blame but themselves. I'll pat myself on the back. I said before the season, I think the Orioles are going to have a really down year, and my God, they've been freaking awful. And even though they went through a nice little period of a hot stretch, it's not enough. I mean, they just lost 1-0 in which uh, Trevor Rogers, which all of a sudden is a good pitcher now. So maybe dumping Kyle Stowers wasn't the dumbest thing in the world. I don't know. He just threw an 8-inning complete game, 1-run performance, and the Orioles lost 1-0. So really,
Yeah.
you know, but they sold. I thought they made off pretty decently with the pieces that they sold off. I thought they sold off everything they kind of could have. Moving Sir Anthony was good. Moving, Hearn and Laureano was good. They're
I'll have to
in the
step
mix.
away for a moment. I will be right back. So we want to keep chatting.
Yeah. Yeah, I can go on to the AL Central. The Detroit Tigers, the one of the best records in the first half, have been in free fall. Obviously, the Phillies won a crazy one last night against them, but they made some, I'd say, uninspiring moves. I think they needed to do a lot more if they wanted to really put themselves in serious contention. And what did they do? They acquired Charlie Morton from Baltimore. They acquired Kyle Finnegan from the Nationals, Paul Sewald from the Guardians. It was nothing that felt like it was it was needle moving. Like, it's like they're just gonna kind of hold their hands up and hope that they have enough as is to win, and when I look at the Detroit Tigers, I don't think they do. I think their lineup has nice pieces, but I think they coulda used another bat. I think their rotation is pretty top heavy, but again, I think they coulda used another starter if they wanted to, and again, it's not like they didn't get guys, but I don't think they got any needle movers, like, as Phillies fans, I see Kyle Finnegan all the time. What is he? He's fine. Sometimes he looks great, sometimes he looks terrible. Yeah, just talking about the Tigers, man. They've done nothing but
Yeah, I thought
some
that
middling
if there
moves,
was a team that needed to add Eugenio Suarez, that was the team, in my
Yeah,
opinion, because
absolutely. Get a serious bat in there, and they
they
didn't.
needed a serious bat in general. And to your point too, like they overachieved. They're kind of like this year's Orioles in a sense, but they're
Yeah,
the inverse, where the Orioles had all these guys on offense like producing monster numbers. They got all their pitchers producing monster numbers with a middling offense, and they needed to really add that. They didn't do it. So yeah,
the Royals made some interesting trades. Randall Grichuk, Adam Frazier, Bailey Falter. Um, they got some decent prospects for Freddie Fermin, I thought, and then Yastrzemski. It was really nothing.
they traded Junior Marte for Yastrzemski.
Yeah, it was nothing really earth-shattering that the Royals did, but they weren't really in a position to do anything earth-shattering. They've been relatively disappointing, so they gave you a disappointing deadline. The Guardians didn't do a ton. They're in their own hell with the gambling stuff. two players that are
What do
looking
you
to be
think?
banned from
So
baseball.
they were seriously shopping Stephen Kwan.
Yeah, I think they were asking for way too much for Stephen Kwan.
It
I
tells
think
me
Stephen Kwan's a nice player, man, but
I think
I don't
Stephen
think
I think Stephen Kwan could be a Philly potentially in the offseason. Or
maybe. Listen, I think Stephen Kwan's a nice player. I don't think Stephen Kwan would have been worth what he would have got traded for if he got moved. Like he's a left-handed hitter that has like a 775, 780 OPS for his right-handed pitching and like a 690 OPS for his left-handed pitching. Doesn't hit you for a ton of power. Like it's nothing but a fine top of the lineup hitter, maybe like a 5-hole guy that just puts the ball in
yeah,
play
the
and drives
comp
in
I have
runs.
for him,
Like,
he's like a Shane Victorino.
yeah, and it's like, yes, honestly, a lot with a little worse defense because he doesn't play center, but he is still a good fielder. Um, yeah, I'm not. I don't think they should have traded him, honestly. Like I know the whole thing might be a disaster now if you start getting guys banned, but he's got years of control. I think there was no rush to have to trade him.
Yes, I don't think Emmanuel Clase may ever like sniff an MLB clubhouse for the rest of his life.
And, I mean, they just might get banned. Like I don't know, they might
Yes.
just get banned from the sport. So
Okay, so the White Sox, Michael, dude, I think I have a rainbow-haired afro if they're going to actually pick up his $20 million option.
you think they're just gonna let him walk after all this?
Yes, because they're Michael. They had the
Wow.
worst record in MLB history in like the modern era last year. You don't think that's beneath them to make a stupid move?
No, I hear you. I hear you. I
Because
mean,
if you
I'd be
pick up his
shocked.
option, no one's going to trade for him. Then you're going to pay him $20 million. He doesn't want to be there. Do you notice his play markedly improved around the time they were shopping him?
No, I know. He
He
doesn't want to be
doesn't want
there.
to be there. So
Nope.
why would you keep him?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think if they asked the Phillies, like if they called the Phillies and were like, hey, if we'll trade you Luis Robert, if you give us like Escobar and Rojas, would you have traded Escobar and Rojas for Robert?
No, like he wasn't worth more than like a top 8 to 12 prospect in the system. Like I would have traded like Dante Nori for him, you know? Like I don't think that I think what the White Sox were asking for was a top 5 prospect, and I don't think any team was willing to
And that's the
part
thing.
for
And
a
now you
5
hold on to him, like the whole threat of, oh, we're
like,
gonna.
he's a glorified rental, like, it's what he was. He was a glorified rental that if he goes to a new team and he struggles a lot, they're not picking up the $20 million option. If he goes to a new team and he plays well, they still might not even pick it up because it is $20 million just for another year. So, like, it would have been it's a glorified rental that definitely has a lot of upside, but the White Sox were being way too greedy asking for a ton of prospects for him or a top tier prospect for him. When no one is willing to do it, then I think you need to look at yourself in the mirror, considering all the teams that were involved being the Phillies, the Mets, the Yankees, and the Dodgers. Like all those teams were involved. You had the top of the class, biggest spenders in baseball all involved, and they couldn't get something done. It's a really bad look.
Agreed. All right, we'll do the NL West, talk about the Phillies, and we'll wrap up the show. Obviously, Astros, Michael. Do you think they?
Correa back. I think they had a solid deadline, very typical Astros stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mariners.
Great deadline. I think they built a roster and a lineup that that's a World Series caliber lineup. When you look at it top to bottom, there are a lot of guys, good playoff performers in there, good young players, good veterans. It's a great lineup. A Rosarena, Suarez,
I think we could
Rodriguez,
see a potential ALCS of the Blue Jays and the Mariners.
Mariners. That'd be pretty cool. I think the Mariners they pushed their chips in getting Eugenio Suarez for what seemed like not a huge haul, and then also Josh Naylor a little bit before that. Like they needed it. They needed help with the corner infield, and they totally addressed it. So yeah, they're in a great spot. I think Seattle.
Rangers.
Fine deadline. I think they had to buy. I think you're in a situation where you won the World Series a couple years ago.
older
Your
manager,
your
Hall of
assets are
Fame
all
manager.
old. Yeah, I mean, all your good players are old. Seager's only getting older, DeGrom's old, and it seems like,
His
you
first
can't
healthy
count
season
yeah,
ever.
you can't count on many good years for DeGrom, so when you're having one, it's gotta be worth pushing in for. So,
Evaldi.
listen, and you look at how they won the World Series a couple years ago. They got hot to be able to make the playoffs, and then when they got in, they were inexplicably hot, and they went on a run and won. So they're looking like, listen, all we gotta do is get in, and you don't know what can happen, and that's very true. So
Angels. Weird.
they didn't do anything. They didn't sell. They didn't move off of anybody really, and I think that I don't know. They're doing what they do every year, which is they sit in the middle with Mike Trout, and they don't really commit either way, and this is what you get.
Uh, Athletics.
They got a great haul for Mason Miller. Can't really hate it. Their offense for the future, for the Vegas A's potentially, is set up to be really, really good with like Brent Rooker as the aging like veteran presence, but then you mix in Nick
Butler.
Kurtz, Lawrence
Kurtz.
Butler,
Wilson.
Wilson, and then DeVries and Langoliers is still like they got a lot of guys on that
They
team
look
that
like they're building like another potential like A's dynasty. Well, dynasty, I mean dynasty of winning 95 games and they're cheapskates and they just get bounced in the first round because
sure.
they can't do anything. All right, let's talk about the Phillies and then we'll wrap up the show. So, Michael, I think the Phillies were winners. People
Absolutely.
people on
There's no way
Twitter are
around it.
complaining they didn't add a bat, but
They
realistically,
did. Like, they added a bat. Like, if they traded for Joan Duran at 5:55 PM, we'd all be thrilled. It's the fact that they traded for him, like, the day before the deadline that I think people are disappointed because they were waiting for a lot more than just Harrison Bader. But, like, listen, trading Eduardo Tait sucks. That hurts a lot. Trading McAble, not a big deal. I assumed he was
yeah.
gonna be
But do you
gone.
look
It
at what
feels like
other
he had to be
teams had to give
gone.
up for other like
That's what I was
lesser
getting to.
relievers?
Like, that's what I was getting to. I think you got the best player that was available at the deadline in Duran. And you look at what Mason Miller costs. And I get he's got another year of control, but oh my God, you look at what Mason Miller costs. Duran looks like an absolute thievery. You know, um, you look at even though Bednar didn't cost a ton, it just feels like the Phillies got a very, very
Bednar
fair
wasn't that
value.
good. Like in my opinion, though, it was I was like, eh, like Bednar, like, dude, you see the tweet where like the Yankee broadcast, like Michael Kay said, I don't know why the Yankees are bringing in David Bednar. He has a career 7 ERA at Lone Depot Park, and they're like, oh, we'll just give Aaron Boone the benefit of the doubt, and he just,
No, I listen. I get it.
dude, come on, man.
He's having one of the best. He's having one of the better reliever seasons this year for sure. It looks like he's bounced back, but I think you got the best. I think you got the best guy traded out of all the guys that were traded at the trade deadline. I think Yohan Duran was the best one, and the Phillies got him. And like, anytime you do that, I think you're in a good spot. I think the Duran trade was like an A. Harrison Bader, if we didn't have access to his peripherals and underlying stats, I think we'd be thinking this is such a great steal. But we do have access to his baseball savant and whatnot, and it is pretty discouraging to look at. So like there is reason to believe that he is going to regress. But in a vacuum, he is having a much better offensive season than any of your current outfielders on the roster. He is now that you've optioned Rojas, he's your best defensive outfielder, I think, by a pretty decent margin. And he brings some edge to a team that looks like they have no edge when things are going poorly. And I think that that is a very valuable asset to have as well. He brings some pop to a lineup that desperately needed some pop. He brings energy that to a lineup needs energy. If I had to grade the Bader trade, I'd give it like a B or a B minus. So putting their overall deadline at like a very solid B or a B plus. And like, yes, do I wish they got another bat, like another like Laureano as another guy, or O'Hearn was, yes, absolutely. Do I wish the White Sox weren't as stupid as they were with Robert and they could have got him? Absolutely. Do I even wish they got another bullpen guy, like a lower term bullpen guy? Yes. Did all the bullpen guys I want to get have a garbage day yesterday? Also, yes. So like,
Yeah, we're not grading on how they perform on August 1st, ultimately.
no, exactly. So like, there are a bunch of guys that there's some more trades. I would have loved if they could have got another reliever. I would have loved if they could have got another bat, and I think we all would have agreed that this was like an A+ deadline. But I think it's still comfortably B+ when you get a guy as good as Duran, and Bader is definitely an improvement to the lineup. I, it's hard to really be to complain that much. Do we think the lineup is like in a spot where it's certainly ready to compete for a World Series as one of the top ones? Like, no. We know it didn't get a lot better with just getting Harrison Bader. But you have great starting pitching. Your bullpen does get a lot better, even if it's just one guy. We did also get David Robertson. That happened. They got better. The Phillies got better 100%. And you look at all the other teams that also got better in the National League, and the Padres built a super bullpen last year, and that super bullpen was not enough for them to even get out of the divisional series. The Mets seemingly did the same similar thing the Padres did last year, and maybe it's just not even enough. So the winners of the deadline do not equal winners of the World Series usually.
No, but I
So
do think the team that knows how to address its two biggest weaknesses at the deadline, which for the Phillies was a
right-handed
closer,
outfielder,
right?
the
Also, it was a
closer,
closer
yeah.
that can go and miss bats and dominate the game, close it out for you, and then Phillies needed Michael. The Phillies need not an outfield that can hit left-handed pitching. They needed an outfield that can field because Max Kepler is not a good fielder anymore, and Nick
He's been fine
Castellanos
out there.
is
Casty's
well,
terrible, but
as we know, and yeah. So here's the thing with Bader, though. You saw it last night against the Tigers. They had Kepler. They took him out. They stick him in there as a replacement, and he kind of made some things. I mean,
like he walked a 4-pitch walk on pitches that they were non-competitive, and
but
then
he's fast.
he strikes out, and it's like Bader, the energy level just shifted, and it's like as much as you want to talk about what actually matters, what actually determines a game. The vibes in that stadium when Harrison Bader came to pinch hit for Max Kepler went up through the roof. Max Kepler was getting booed relentlessly yesterday,
Oh,
and
yeah, I think
Bader
it's kind of
comes in.
ridiculous that I'm reading about how when the Phillies will call up Crawford, I think August 16th, so he could still have the
It's
rookie
a service
status,
time issue.
the
Yeah.
service time thing, which is also going to be the day they will probably DFA Kepler, which is pretty wild because you're playing Kepler still when you plan on potentially cutting him. This is almost like Kepler's got 2 weeks to like show them something, or else
Yeah.
because like dude, it's wild to me that he's complains about playing time. Then a month later, the clubhouse goes to Dave Dombrowski and says, "We need another outfielder. We need another bat."
No, for
I.e.,
sure. It's
the
frustrating.
German is just like he is a buzzkill. Get this
It's
buzzkill off this team.
it's frustrating. You look at it's like he's he's definitely he looks like he doesn't care at the moment, which is not a good thing. He's definitely been unlucky. Like he's gotten 2 home runs robbed. He flew out to the wall yesterday, and like he's getting booed as he flies out to the wall and he's getting booed as he jogs back to the dugout. And it's like he even has a smirk on his face. He's like, "What?
What do I gotta
I'm
do to please you?
sorry." Yeah, like it's what I'm saying. So he's hit the ball hard for like this past week, which feels kind of ridiculous to want to commit to him. I, I get what they're doing. It's frustrating what they're doing. Is the 2 weeks so you maintain the rookie status of Justin Crawford really worth like whatever 2 weeks you're gonna get from Kepler? And it's like, is whatever you're gonna see from Kepler gonna be enough for you to say, yeah, he needs to be on the roster over Crawford? Like, is how likely is that to the point where you can't play Harrison Bader every day? You know? And I get it. Harrison Bader is what he is, but he's just been better than all your other outfielders and really should be in the lineup every
Would
day.
you rather have a guy who's going to have a lucky season that's overperforming right now, or a guy that is unlucky who's playing like dog crap who doesn't want to be here?
No, I agree. I'll take the lucky season, man. And Harrison Bader, his playoff stats are all inflated by that crazy run he had in 2022 with the Yankees. But like, if there's something that he is good at, he can hit a meatball. How many times do we see Alec Boehm, Nick Castellanos, Bryson Stott, all these guys get a pitch that's kind of middle, and they just miss it. They foul it back. They hit it into the ground, whatever. Harrison Bader, when he gets those sort of pitches, he hits them a long ways. So hopefully some of that power comes and shows through. I mean, Harrison Bader's a guy that has been like, oh, the Phillies should trade for Harrison Bader for like 5 years
Former
now.
Cardinal, another
Yeah, it's a
Cardinal.
guy the Phillies should have gotten for like 5 years, and like they finally got him. But I'm like mildly excited about Bader. I think he can help. I'm like over the moon for Joan Duran. Like the entrance last night was about as electric as a regular season game that the Phillies have had in a long time. The 98-mile-an-hour splitter is ridiculous. He leads all relievers in like ground ball rate since he's come into the league, on top of the fact that he does also have some really good swing and miss and strikeout stuff. He's pretty much like the perfect reliever in my eyes. Like if I could build a reliever, build a closer, it would be exactly what Yohan Duran is. And he, in 18 playoff innings, has been very, very effective. Like he's capable of pitching in a big moment. His nerves don't get the best of him, all that sort of stuff. So I can't lie. Like it feels like every time he's going to come into the game, knock on wood, it feels like he's going to get the job done. So when you get a guy like that at a trade deadline, it's hard to really be earnest in your complaints. So I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty fired up for Yohan Duran. So
Yeah, man, I think that this is. I was surprised it happened, to be honest, because
when it was really just like Painter or whatever.
That's when I
thought
just was like, no.
I thought if they were gonna do it, it was gonna be Miller. I really did. Where if it was like, okay, they talked him out of Painter, if they're still gonna get him, it's probably gonna be Aiden Miller. And again, Tahit, that sucks. But you kept your
I thought it
top
was
three
going to be
prospects
Crawford,
there.
and I wonder if maybe.
I think the Phillies, unfortunately, think Crawford is better than how all the other teams feel about him.
I think so too. I think Tahit is someone who teams maybe highly value more than like prospect lists, like let on. Like there's a franchise that knows about good catchers. It would be the Minnesota Twins.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, that's our show, everybody. Phillies play today at 4:05. They play the Detroit Tigers again. Tariq Skubal, the reigning, probably going to win another Cy Young, Michael. I mean, who else is going to win a Cy Young in the American League? I don't know if Crochet or...
Well, Crochet is in the conversation, but as long as Skubal keeps dominating. This is Skubal like, Wheeler. This is peak right here. Skubal
this
Wheeler
is like today. This could be like peak Wheeler aura farming for a Cy Young, like out-dueling Skubal. Like
he needs it, man, because a couple of those last two outings.
If he gets effed out of the Cy Young, it's going to be like Paul Skeens pitches in front of 15 people every game to no pressure, and Wheeler is going in all these big games.
Listen, man, Skeens is in Colorado after last night's ridiculous Rockies-Pirates game that finished 17-16.
Yes.
Dude, I need the Rockies to put up like 6 on them. Oh, my God. If they put up 6 on them, the Cy Young is in our court with Sanchez or Wheeler. It's going to be one of them. So we're rooting for the Rockies, man. And Zach needs to dominate and outduel Skubal today. But yeah, Phillies Tigers at 4:00. Skubal Wheeler, that should be art right there. So
yeah, it's great.
Tune in, everybody.
Have 2 great pitchers from both leagues. Yeah. And this is kind of the whole point of interleague, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
This is the whole point of it.
Yes. Anyways,
thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a great day.
We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.